Hello, I'm Max Porterfield. I'm President and CEO of Callinex Mines. I'm very excited to be here at MIF, as always, to present our most recent discovery we just made on the property just a couple of weeks ago. We're known for very high-grade copper, as well as gold, silver, and zinc as byproducts with our VMS deposits located just outside of Flin Flon, Manitoba. I will make a lot of forward-looking statements and with expectations of what we're looking to achieve, so you can read over this to keep that in mind. Before I get into the bread and butter of what we do in our business, cap structure is everything for share price performance as these turn around in the markets. We have a very, very tight cap structure, just 17.1 million shares outstanding. Management and close associates, including family, own 23%. I myself personally own just under 4% that I acquired through the open market over the past several years. And then in terms of institutional support, nearly half the float's held by institutions with the likes of Resource Capital Funds, SSI out of Europe, 1832 was the lead order on our last financing, McKinsey out of Toronto as well. We completed a $9.4 million capital raise in March of this year, which fully funds our 2023 objectives that we're going to go over. And we also have two analysts that covers us, the company, Research Capital, as well as Beacon Securities, and no debt on the balance sheet. I'm definitely not a proponent of debt. In terms of our technical team and our team overall, our team's been credited with over half the mines ever found in the Flin Flon District's history. The Flin Flon District has produced over 32 mines and counting, because I don't believe it's over, and I think our discoveries are a testament to the future of Flin Flon. But again, aside from half of them, it's three of the four largest mines in the camp's history. Maslowski is a member of the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame for 12 mines in Manitoba, the largest being Trout Lake, that saved the town of Flin Flon when the original Flin Flon ore body was shutting down. O'Donnell and Piquel were part of the 777 mine discovery, which is the mine that just shut down last July that led to over 700 direct jobs being lost for the community of Flin Flon, a community of just over 5,000 people. And Alan Vowles won Bill Dennis Award for the Lawler mine, which is currently producing in the Snow Lake area of the Flin Flon Greenstone Belt. And more recently, Peter Jones joined our team. Peter is the former founding CEO of Hudbay. He was senior management at Anglo before leaving Anglo, setting up the RTO to acquire the 777 mine and infrastructure, built 777, oversaw the initial discovery and development of Lawler. So as an engineer, Peter's not only capitalized, but helped build and design some of the biggest mines in Flin Flon's history. So again, we put the team together to find it and advance it to a production decision, which we're aggressively pursuing with our exploration efforts on the property. So here is the project area. We have Flin Flon located right here. That's where the 5,500 ton per day mill is. It's operated by Hudbay that sits idle on care and maintenance. Hudbay's claims are in blue. Our claims are here in red, and that's the focal point of the company is our Pine Bay property, where we have now 3 different discoveries that are being expanded. The project area sits 16 kilometers away as the crow flies from Flin Flon, a 30-minute drive by existing all-weather road access. All of the discoveries sit within a mineral lease, so it provides for advanced permitting. You only need your water license or EIA to advance it for your project description and to get your construction papers, as well as there's a hydroelectric power line that sits on site. So not only are we known for very high-grade copper, but we also have cheap, low-cost, clean power running within 500 meters of our first discovery called Rainbow that we just published a resource out on. And again, water is not an issue. They're very prevalent with the mines in Flin Flon's history, often taking the name of the lake that they're discovered on. So in terms of this area, the property actually dates back, in terms of exploration in the area, back to 1919, where the first explorers explore the eastern part of the mineral lease right over here. And actually in 1929, our predecessor company, Callinex Mines, was actually the second company to explore the area in 1929, actually sinking a shaft over on the Baker Patent deposit. So with that being said, there was over about a dozen companies that have explored the property, the last being Placidome, that opined for a 30 million ton exploration target in the area because the land package encompasses the largest felsic volcanic rock package in the entire Flin Flon Greenstone Belt. And the importance of that is that 90% of all the mines are hosted in the felsics. So if you're looking for a mine in Flin Flon, you better be looking in the felsics. In addition to that, in purple that you can see is what's known as an alteration system. And an alteration system is basically where all the fluids flowed during the volcanic event to displace the VMS deposit that's hosting the copper, gold, silver, and zinc. And so the larger your alteration system, the larger the correlating deposit, and the alteration that's been mapped at surface here spans at least 700 by 1100 meters, which is why Placer Dome had a 30 million ton exploration target, and we've had a very large exploration target and focused on the property since 2014. Now, I mentioned our first discovery and I kind of pointed to where it was on the map there earlier, and I'll show you again on the following plan view map, but we just published a maiden resource on our first discovery that we made in August 2020. We put over 40,000 meters of drilling onto our Rainbow deposit. Discovery hole was down below 900 meters vertical depth. We've gone up plunged and chased it within 100 meters of surface. And that resource at Pine Bay was a maiden resource, the first one we've put out on the property, and encompassed Rainbow and a parallel Pine Bay deposit. Rainbow came out at 4.7 million tons. 3.44 million of those tons are in the indicated category, grading 3.62% copper equivalent, and over 3.14% of that is actually copper. So it is truly a high-grade copper discovery. By comparison, you know, a lot of the mines around the world are mining less than 0.5% copper. So again, we're high-grade copper in a Tier 1 jurisdiction where they actually want us to be here, and we can readily advance the discoveries as we move them forward. So along that growth fault corridor, Rainbow sits right here, as I mentioned, right along that the power line that sits there. There's a historic head frame and shaft down the 600-foot level, and then that parallel deposit called Pine Bay sits right there, and that's where the million tons of 2.62% copper sits, and really why that mineral lease is there to begin with. We've just announced a brand new discovery called Descendant, and I'm going to spend the bulk of the remainder of my time talking about Descendant, but we also have a discovery here called Alchemist that we haven't been able to follow up adequately this year, and we'll be able to get to it this winter. And between Alchemist and Rainbow, we have another target area called Odin. But going back to Descendant, which is the discovery we just announced, this is, again, the area of the property, going back to 1919, that everyone truly was seeking the giant because of that felsic package and that big alteration system. And you can see all that drilling on that area, that property, were over 400 good ideas that just didn't hit the discovery the way they had wanted to. And so we re-entered and had a target there this year, and we're very pleased with that. It was really based upon a reinterpretation of the geology, based upon the success now of discovering Rainbow, Alchemist, and also seeing the Pine Bay deposit. So out at Pine Bay, you can see how Alchemist is steeply dipping near vertical, and I'll show you a long section here in a moment. Rainbow, the same thing, and you see Cabin, the same thing. There's a pod of mineralization here called the Cabin deposit that goes back to the 1950s, where it is in proximity to that alteration system, and essentially we revisited in 2016, and actually some of the newsletter writers in this room or part of this organization wrote us up on this discovery hole in 2016, but we deepened a historic Placer Dome hole 38 meters, and that's when we hit 10.3 meters of 6% zinc, 0.7 copper, 1.8 gram per ton gold, and 2 ounce silver. When we stepped out below it, we weren't able to replicate the widths that we had on that discovery hole at the time. The following year in 2017, we went to the south, hit 2.4 meters of over 3% copper, and we kind of took a pause on our exploration approach. Again, if you look at the mines in Flin Flon, the Callinex, the 777, same thing with Lawler, they're very flat lying, not as steep as you're seeing with Rainbow and Alchemist. So our discovery hole on Descendant was 375 meters vertically below the last intersection there, and that's where we hit 4 new lenses of mineralization. Zinc gold dominant portion of that, it's pyrite hosted, and it's very similar to the mineralization that you see on Rainbow. And in these VMS deposits, there's zonation that occurs. And we believe that as we go down the plunge line at depth is where we're going to come into the high-grade copper. There's also indication based upon those 4 lenses, they're cross-cuts by dikes and sills. So there's potential that when we come off and step out on that, we won't have 4 lenses of massive sulfides. It would be one large 50-meter wide interval, potentially, of high-grade mineralization that would be sitting there. Because again, these dikes and sills come in after the mineralized event. So it's a brand new discovery in the perfect geologic environment that everybody's looked at to host a large VMS deposit. And so we're quite pleased with the initial discovery hole. We're stepping out immediately with a 5,000-meter drilling campaign that we're announcing more details on in the very, very near future, again, to build a significant tonnage on top of the resource that we just announced at both Rainbow and the Pine Bay deposit just about a month and a half ago. And real quickly, to sum this up, these are all the mines in Flin Flon's history. Red's the initial reserves, blue's the added reserves. And just to quantify where we are on the property at 5.7 million tons between all the deposits and categories is a significant step on building quite a sizable resource base out at Pine Bay. So appreciate everybody's time today and happy to take any questions at the conclusion of the presentation in the main hall.